Hi, and thanks for joining us today for Ready, Set, NetSuite, a NetSuite demonstration from Luxent. My name is Laura Ginsberg, and I work in marketing here at Luxent, and I am excited to be joined today by Ben Katerberg, our Chief Solution Architect and NetSuite Director of Services, as well as Vivian Kina, President and CEO. A couple of housekeeping items before we get underway. We are recording today's session, and we'll be happy to get that to you after the presentation. We'd also love to answer any of your questions. Feel free to enter questions throughout the presentation, and we will do our very best to answer all of them at the end of the presentation, or we will follow up with you afterward and get you the details that you need. With that, again, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll hand it over to Vivian.
Great, thank you, Laura. Okay, today's agenda, we're going to do a quick introduction on Luxent and then go right into talking about NetSuite and the demonstration. Excited to be doing these demonstrations again. We did several of them last year and they were well received. So we're going to be starting the series and actually starting to introduce these more often. We're to discuss the packaging and pricing, which everybody seems very interested in, and then talk about next steps. Luxent has been around since 2009, so we've been a NetSuite solution provider for some time. What that really means is we do everything from help companies with the selection of NetSuite, the implementation, and then the ongoing support for the product. We also have a great development team. We have solutions that are on the NetSuite App Exchange, and then we have the ability to do help with integrations to other solutions. We also focus primarily on the mid-market. We do have larger customers and startups, but our main focus has been in the mid-market, both manufacturing and distribution, service and software. With that, Oracle NetSuite has been around, #1 ERP, right? We have been 32, this number keeps growing and growing. Every time I see the side, it increases. So 32,000 companies globally using the solution. And it's the #1 ERP in the cloud, the first ERP in the cloud. So the solution that a lot of companies are looking at and considering as they look for their either first ERP or their next ERP from a legacy solution. Go forward. I love this slide because this really helps us to kind of look at what industries NetSuite is fit for. It has really fit for multiple industries, right? So there's companies that are in mixed mode, I call it, where they're manufacturing, but doing some distribution, or manufacturing and doing some retail, or service, and have introduced different things to their portfolio. So really some logos that you probably recognize here, and some just ability to really service and address multiple industries. Rich in functionality. So the key thing is that the solution is fairly rich and robust. I mean, everything from warehouse management to CRM. Some of the third-party solutions that are often with an ERP that are introduced are part of NetSuite's core. And I think that is an important fact, but very rich. Started as an accounting solution and then quickly grew into inventory management, distribution, and then on the manufacturing side, service and retail. So it has a nice core solution that satisfies a lot of the needs of a lot of companies out there. I am going to hand it over to Ben so he can start on the demonstration and tell you a little bit more and get going, and maybe a little bit about himself and his background. Ben?
Thanks, Vivian. Good morning and good afternoon to some. As Vivian mentioned, I'm Ben Katerberg, the Chief Solution Architect here at Luxent. I've been working in the NetSuite ERP space for about 5 years now. And prior to working in the NetSuite space, I've been in ERP for about 12 years, working in other ERPs such as enterprise level SAP, amongst some others. So I've been in a lot of systems. I've had a lot of different specialties, whether it be kind of core financials, procurement, materials management, as well as some of the sub-verticals of NetSuite around food and beverage and manufacturing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through just a light agenda here around some of the things in NetSuite around procurement, specifically informed procurement, right, based on demand plans. Move into some basics of warehouse operations, flow over into some of the core manufacturing features, touch on some sales, and then talk a little bit about lot traceability and some of the reporting capabilities kind of throughout the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so just right off the bat, I've got a NetSuite screen open here. This is logged in as a procurement manager role. First thing you'll notice here is this is a web page, right? NetSuite is built in the cloud for the cloud. It was kind of the original cloud ERP from the get-go. So this is just an internet browser. I type in netsuite.com. I enter my login credentials. Maybe I have single sign-on, right? So I don't even necessarily have to log in every time I want to go into NetSuite. But it's purely from a web browser, and I can access this on my laptop computer. I can access it on my phone. There is a mobile app for NetSuite. I can also log in through a tablet as well. So this is kind of the general look and feel of the web version of the GUI. And you'll see here right off the bat, I have some navigation menus at the very top that are specific to my role as the procurement manager at the moment. You'll see some reminders on my dashboard. These essentially are my workflows. The system is informing me of certain activities I need to complete, typically coming from another resource in the organization completed their part of something, and then it's kind of passed to me, right? So I have reminders on here such as items to order, right? This would be the planning team maybe logged in and created plans for certain items. And these are the system triggers telling me as the procurement manager, I need to order some items based on my planning parameters, right? You'll see a lot of other types of reminders as well, right? Maybe I have requests for quotes from my vendors, right? And then they've submitted responses. So I have some reminders to review those responses. I have orders to receive, right? Sometimes this may be a purchasing manager. Sometimes this might be your warehouse manager. So a lot of these reminders are configurable by the role. You'll also see here, I have these what are called dashboard tiles. These are basically just easy, quick push button navigation to be able to show me either reports or take me to very specific screens in NetSuite. Right off the bat in the middle here, I've got these key performance indicators. These are pre-configured KPIs that have been designed, and you actually get them when you purchase NetSuite, one of these industry solutions like the manufacturing solution. So this role that I'm in now was a pre-configured role. This is also delivered to you when you purchase NetSuite. So the screen looks just like this when you buy NetSuite on day one. It's just not quite as pretty because obviously you wouldn't have all of the data loaded with the specific figures in some of these KPIs. But even these pre-configured kind of KPIs, pre-configured dashboards, very easy to set up and change, right? I just went on my dashboard here now to do a setup, and I can change maybe my comparison ranges, right? Maybe I don't want it to be about a month. Maybe I want to look at it in terms of a year or rolling year, right? So very easy to change some of this right here on the fly. A lot of these charts, these visualization tools, right? I can play around with, bar charts or make it a line graph. I can change my term to look weekly, monthly, right? So I'm looking at my weekly inventory turns over the last several weeks, move it to monthly, right? I can see my increase in inventory turn here. So each one of these roles was specifically designed and configured for what a typical mid-market purchasing manager might be looking for. I have several other roles in here for instance, a production operator. I also have some sales roles, some warehousing roles, AP analyst, controller. Each one of these roles has their own specific dashboard that comes pre-configured with NetSuite as soon as you purchase it. What I'm going to start off doing here in our demonstration is I'm just going to kind of show you the ease of use and navigation in the processing of procurement to start. So what I would typically do here is I would leverage my workflows or my reminders that inform me as the procurement manager. I need to perform some activities, right? So I clicked on my little reminder that said I have 2 items to order. It takes me to this screen here called Order Items, and I have different filters, right? If I have a lot of data, a lot of procurement, maybe I have specific procurement managers who oversee different types of material, so I can customize my screen and add additional filters. I can look by vendor, put in a vendor filter or a location specific filter, and it's going to filter the results that are displayed based on the system recommendations. So in this case here, I'm navigating to this reorder point item tab, but each one of these tabs are a different replenishment method, right? I might have MRP operating in NetSuite, and MRP is going to generate some planned orders. I may have some basic min max levels that I set where I want to always keep a certain quantity in stock at all times. That's what this reorder point would be. I may have blanket purchase orders, and this is going to inform me of when I need to release my blanket orders. And then time phase, this is going to be the basics of demand plan creations and then the comparison against those supply plans. So in this case here, I'm just going to select just the first item. It's this PIU ROP component item to reorder. My default vendor comes in from my item master record, default currency, my pricing, and you can see here how some of these are calculated, right? On the reorder items, I could see here I have 8 that are available. I don't have any back ordered or on order. I triggered my reorder point at 10. So as soon as I got below 10, it shows up in this queue. And then I need to bring my stocking level back up to 50. I have 8, so it's auto calculating 42 for me. Theoretically, I can change this quantity. I can make it 50, right? I can configure my items so that I have specific quantities, right? I purchase in 10s or in 50s. So it'll actually respect those item configurations here for the quantity it suggests. And I could theoretically change my pricing right here on this screen before I were to submit it. Or if I had multiple vendors, other vendors, I'd be able to select other vendors here as well. If I were to select both of these checkboxes, it's the same vendor, so it would consolidate into a single purchase order for multiple lines. In this case here, though, I'm just going to select my one line. And I have my vendor, I have my price, I have my quantity. I'm going to submit. And this is just going to take me to the basic kind of batch processing screen. I could have had 200 items that I just checked the checkbox for and submitted, and the system's going to automatically crunch the numbers and consolidate lines into individual purchase orders based on any thresholds that I've defined in the system. So maybe I'd never want a purchase order that is more than 10 lines. I can configure it as such. So it'll configure just 10 lines in one PO and then create a separate PO for the next 10 lines. Let's see if it's complete. There it is. So here we have a purchase order that was just created. All I had to do was check a single checkbox and submit. And there's my purchase order for custom products. There's my quantity, price, and I'm all ready to go for my warehouse to receive that purchase order. So I'm going to flip my role here to a warehouse operator. Once again here, I'm logged into the web GUI version of NetSuite. There is a WMS or a NetSuite warehouse management system where you can have scanning guns with the NetSuite software on it and actually scan barcodes to be able to receive or ship product. You can also use the tablet version as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a hard docking station to use the manufacturer or the warehouse operations here. Once again, you'll see there are different reminders here now logged in as the warehouse operator role. So I have different activities such as cycle counts that I need to approve. I can see activities like lots that are nearing expiration, right? This takes me to a data query and I can see some of the details, right, of this specific lot. And I have 10 of them in the Boston location and it's expiring in just a handful of days, right? If I wanted to see what transactions are out there, where these lots came from, I click this little search transactions box and I can see this was an inventory adjustment. So somebody made a manual adjustment to actually bring those 10 items into inventory. You'll see just the basic kind of navigation. It's point and click navigation, right? I don't have to have these transaction codes memorized. I could use some of these drop-down menus to navigate to different parts of the NetSuite screen. I can use this global search here to type in purchase order numbers, any transaction numbers, any item names, customers. This essentially is your NetSuite Google of information. So what I had done previously in the procurement manager's role was I generated a purchase order. I have a reminder on my warehouse operator's role of a certain quantity of orders that are open that haven't yet been received. Right, so I clicked on my reminder that's showing me the list of orders I have not received. And I can see here, this is my custom products vendor PO that I just created today. I just click my receive button here. Once again, if you have a NetSuite WMS or an RF Smart kind of third-party WMS solution, much of this activity may be purely handheld scan guns where you're scanning a barcode, entering a quantity, and filling out this kind of inventory detail is what it's called. This is where you'll specify if it's bin enabled, which bin are you putting it away in? The item here in question has a default preferred bin set for this location, so it defaulted for me. We have various inventory statuses that can be customized and configured. The default status here is good usable inventory, but if my warehouse operator is noticing that some of this product looks defective, I could theoretically receive 40 of these into good inventory, and then I could quarantine the other 2. These inventory statuses are typically configured to either allow or not allow that inventory to be usable, right? Either picked in the warehouse or shipped out to customers or used for any kind of manufacturing operation. All right, and also there are options for landed costs that can be entered on an item receipt, either at the time of the item receipt or even just as an update after the fact once you receive a vendor bill. you can come in and allocate that vendor bill to any number of item receipts and increase the underlying value of the asset you're receiving by those landed costs. Right, and then I save my item receipt, and now I have an additional 40 quantity in inventory placed in a bin, and then 2 additional quantity that are in quarantine status that cannot be used for any manufacturing process or cannot be shipped out to customers. And many of our customers as well, they may have the NetSuite quality module, which allows for auto quarantining of products based on the triggering of any inspections that are required. And there's also workflows built into that module that allow for returns to be triggered back to vendors or other kinds of follow-up activities whenever something does not pass an inspection. The next thing I'd like to show, I'm going to move over to my production manager role. So once again, the production manager role was designed the general dashboard based on this particular individual's normal tasks. So things that look very different on this dashboard that you wouldn't have seen elsewhere are things like capacity by work center, right? Showing different weeks. And this particular work center shows there's quite a bit of extra capacity this week versus prior weeks. The capacity planning and finite scheduling module is part of NetSuite's core advanced manufacturing features. So that this system is fully configured to do full capacity planning activities. So you can run your MRP or material requirements planning software in NetSuite to generate a supply plan and generate your work orders. And the capacity planning module will allow you to determine if you need additional resources to support the in-house manufacturing operations. So first thing I want to show you as the production manager, I'm going to navigate from a drop-down, in this case, just to show you a list of items here. We'll find an item and I'll show you kind of the general structure. So this is a lot numbered assembly item. You'll see here we have this manufacturing tab. There's a bill of material and a revision record associated with this assembly item. Theoretically, you could have multiple bills of material and multiple revisions based on different locations, for instance. So I could theoretically have a recipe to make some product, and the recipe is slightly different in one location versus another. And maybe some of those differences might be explained by things like component yield, right? Maybe this location, we typically have higher yields than other locations. So we may not necessarily have to include as much raw material in the manufacturing process up front. So this is the bill of material record in NetSuite. This really is more about context information, right? Do I want to determine, do I use component yield with these bills of material or not, right? The whole concept of a component yield really is driving towards, do I need 4 gallons of this particular liquid and I only yield 2 gallons after the manufacturing process, right? I would typically use a component yield and I want to include all 4 gallons of additives into the cost of my product, knowing that not all 4 gallons survive the manufacturing process. I can, once again, have specific locations for specific bills of material. make bills of material specific to subsidiaries. And then here you'll see the different revision options. So I opened up one of these revisions in another tab, but you can see here, these revisions may be different effectivity dates. So if I am planning a new recipe or a new bill of material to start next month, if I create a work order now for this material, it's going to use the current revision. If I create a work order after, on or after the effective start date here, it's going to use the newer recipe, right? So here is an example of one of these bills of material. You'll see here effectivity dates. It references that bill of material. The components right now, they're all listed as 100% component yield. But if we had that component yield enabled to do something like 50% component yield, our BOM quantity and actual quantity would actually be different values. And then we can also define the item source. Where am I getting the item for this bill of material? It can either come from stock, it can be a special purchase order, it can be another special work order if it's a sub-assembly process. So that's kind of the general look and feel of our assembly items and those bills of material. So one thing I can do here as my production manager, it doesn't always have to necessarily be a production manager, but I have the ability to have some of my work orders actually automatically created for me. So I'm in this mass create work order screen, and you'll see here, this looks very similarly to that procurement manager's screen, their order item screen, where I have these different kind of replenishment methods, right? As I mentioned previously, the planned orders, any items that would show up in planned orders would be coming from MRP. Any items that are showing up under reorder point maybe have specific stocking levels, and then time phase, maybe they have some specific demand planning set up for those particular materials. So I've got one item here, this SAF 100-ROP item that has triggered a reorder point. And I can see here, I don't have any available. I have 2 on back order. My build point was 6. So obviously when I'm at 0, it's going to trigger this build point. And it needs to bring me back up to 24, but I have 2 back ordered. So it's suggesting I create a work order for 26. On the item record itself, I could define specific lot sizing, just like my procurement lot sizing. So if I run it in specific batches, I have a little control as well. All right, this is that kind of batch processing screen, because theoretically it's called mass create work orders. So I could have checked the box all the way down and submitted and created lots and lots of work orders all at once based on my different planning parameters. So hit my refresh, it's complete, and I can see here, created this work order. So in NetSuite, you do have the flexibility of having different kind of statuses for your work order and what those default statuses are when that work order is generated from supply planning or the way I just created it. So right now it automatically created in a released status and firmed, but some organizations choose to have work orders auto created in planned statuses, and separately they're going to firm up and release the work orders as separate processes, right? And one of the benefits to having work orders created in planned unfirmed status is I can keep running MRP, and it may say, you know, we thought we needed 5 before on this work order, but we rerun MRP and it replaces this work order with a new work order. So that's why some organizations may choose to have work orders in a planned unfirmed status to start. But once you firm up and release a work order, one of the general kind of functions from an inventory allocation standpoint is I have quantities of my components that are on the shelf in the warehouse. And as soon as I firm up and release my work order, the system can auto commit those quantities of raw material to my work order. So you'll see here these different columns, quantity-based columns on the line item of my work order. I can see I need 260 of this HDW001 hardware. I have all 260 firmed and allocated to this specific work order, right? If I was out of stock, but maybe I had a purchase order outstanding for it and it's to be received on another day, I would have only the quantity committed that I currently have, but then I may have allocated supply. This allocated supply would be able to show me future inventory. So maybe I have a purchase order for this hardware that's set to be received on a certain day. I'd have visibility to that from this work order. I'd also have visibility on the purchase order itself if I flip to that PO, where it could show me I have some of this quantity that's destined for this work order, even though this is not necessarily a special work order situation. And by special, I mean a linked work order to a linked purchase order. So right now I have all the quantities committed. Quantity committed is the quantity total for all my components. So I could theoretically build this right now. I can print my BOM. And these BOMs that are printed, these can be configured. So you can show different quantity column or different columns here, different fields that are important. But when I print my BOM here, I can see the specific items. I can see on the inventory detail, here's the bin and here's the total quantity in that bin for this material. So my warehouse can go out and pick the quantities based on my printed BOM. So this particular assembly item here is set up with work in process. There are a few different levels of manufacturing in NetSuite when it comes to just basic straight assembly builds versus work in process and manufacturing routings, right? So if this was just a basic assembly build, I would just have a button that said build assembly, right? And I just take raw materials and it immediately converts to a single quantity of whatever the assembly is, right? There's no work in process stage. In this instance here, this is a WIP work order. There is an option to issue components and then enter completions. Otherwise, you have an option of a backflush process as well that essentially kind of mimics more of a direct assembly build process where it combines my component issue with the completion at the same time. I'm going to start this one with just a pure work order issue. So I have all of my quantities come in automatically, and I can just determine, validate the specific quantities that are coming in. If any of these were lot controlled inventory items, I'd have to define what specific lots I'm choosing. And in a little bit, I can show you, we did build a auto FEFO lot selection on both work orders and sales orders. If you have inventory that does expire, we have a customization we built that allows the warehouse operator or any individual with permission to run this FEFO lot selection so that you can ensure that your rotation of your materials are happening properly and not expiring in the warehouse. So here we can see this bin, the inventory that's in this status. Here's how many I have in total, and here's how many I'm actually taking from the shelf for my manufacturing. So all of the details came in automatically on this work order. And when I save my work order issue, I will have my first kind of financial impacting transaction here, where I'm taking each of my raw material components out of inventory and moving it into my WIP account. If I go back to my work order here, I can show my completion, but first I wanted to just touch on the operations. So this particular work order was set up with just a single operational or routing step, just called assemble. And I can see here there are some expectations here of 30 minutes of setup time, 60 minutes per unit as a run rate. This is essentially my planned amount of time for the different activities in this particular operation. When I go to enter my completion, I can select my starting and ending operation that I'm performing my completion for. In this case, it's just one operation, so going from 10 to 10. I am attempting to build 26 of this assembly item, but I could build 25. I can select which bin I'm going to put it in. Maybe I split and I do 20 in this bin, and then I have another bin, put 5 in this bin. This completion task, as well as the work order issue task, these can be done with a mobile device as well, with either your WMS solution, or NetSuite does offer a free manufacturing mobile app. And that's what can be leveraged rather than entering directly in the GUI here, the web GUI, these completions and issues. And then as I'm completing this, if I do have different amount of setup time, labor time, run rates, etc., I can update these values before I save. I'm going to enter one scrap quantity because I built 25. I was trying to build 26. One gets scrapped. And then I'll save my completion. And validate my GL accounting impacts to see here that I now have inventory valued at 13,650. This is the total value of my inventory of the 25 assembled goods that I just completed. I can see here there was $546 written to scrap, right? That was for the single quantity that got written off into scrap. And then I can see here that here's some machinery and some labor costs that got added to the total value of my assembled products. Those were linked to those setup time and run rates. There's a cost template that is linked behind the scenes on those manufacturing routing setup. And that's how I'm able to incorporate machinery and labor costs into the total value of my assembled product. All right, so that's kind of the basics of the manufacturing. I'm going to flip over to, I'm going to temporarily go into an administrator role here just to share the FEFO lot selection option that I discussed here. And in this case, I'll show you the power of my global search. I'm typing in SO 1772 here. You'll see it makes the suggestion for, in this case, a specific sales order to be able to view. Here is a sales order for a quantity of 25. In this case, this is a lot controlled item. Right? This is a lot controlled inventory item. I need 25 of these to ship out to my customer. I've opened up the item master record here, and I'm going to click into my inventory detail. This is going to show me the various quantities and the specific lots that I have in my San Francisco location. So I'm ordering 25 for my customer. I have 10 of this lot, 10 of this lot, 10 of this lot. So theoretically, I want to ship out all 10 of my oldest lot, right? All 10 of the second oldest, and then only 5 of my newest lot. So here I have a FEFO lot assignment. Suitelet is what this is called. And this can work on sales orders, work orders, transfer orders, right? But the point is you're going to want to run everything all at once here to have the auto selection of specific lots on your sources of demand, right? So for this case, I'm going to select my sales order here and submit. And then once this completes, I'm just going to refresh my sales order itself here. I can just hard refresh my browser. And what this did here was it populated my inventory detail for me and selected 10 of lot A, 10 of lot B, and 5 of lot C automatically for me. So now when I go to print my picking ticket for my warehouse, they know specifically which lots they're grabbing to satisfy this customer's order. All right, and then I know we're getting close on time here. I want to share one other piece of functionality. These are some of the reports that are in the environment. And these reports, they do come automatically with your instance of NetSuite. These are all kind of pre-configured, pre-built reports. I want to share the lot tracing functionality. Obviously, lot traceability is very important in industries such as food and beverage, medical device, etc. And what we have on this kind of lot traceability report here is we've got some flexibility around kind of forward and backward tracing. So maybe I'll start out with, let's do like a finished good item. I'm putting in my specific item, and then I can look up a specific lot. And what this is going to show me when I do the lot trace is it's going to show me a couple of different areas that I might be concerned about, looking either forward or backward in the process. One is going to be the component receipts, right? Since this was a finished assembled good, technically I didn't receive this, right? I built it, so it's showing me a work order. But then I do have the option of kind of expanding the nodes here to be able to drill down further and further into the manufacturing process, all the way down to that component level, right? Because my components may have some lot numbers on the component level. So I can actually trace all the way back down to the component level to see what were all the lots and the receipts associated with the component lots, kind of moving all the way backwards from a finished good. And this is on the component receipt side. It's taking a second here. I apologize for that. You'll also see there is a production tab here. So here's my raw material component. It is lot controlled that went into this sub-assembly, which went into my finished good. There's my purchase order. There's my item receipt. So this is kind of that backward lot traceability. Here's my production lot trace. So this is the specific work order that I use this lot, but once again, I can expand the node, right, and go down to the BOM layers below it. I also have a consumed by tab. So if I was doing a trace of a raw material, I'd be able to trace up the ladder, right, and see everywhere where I consumed my raw material. And that could have been in multiple work orders multiple assembly builds. And then finally, I have here fulfillments. These are all of the shipments that I sent out to my customer, the associated quantity, all for this specific lot. Those were the delivery addresses. So I can look forward and say, who did I ship this finished product to, as well as kind of going backwards. And then there are some other options with lot traceability as well. If you do have the quality module and you're performing inspections, this lot traceability also will show you what were my quality testing results, right? And I can go backwards and forwards there in that hierarchy of my bill of material to kind of trace all the way back as well. All right, so that was it for kind of my high level review of some of the features and functionality in NetSuite. I'll turn it back over to Vivian to wrap us up.
Great, thanks, Ben. That's a pretty good overview on all the different pieces pretty quickly. So I know there's a lot more to show, and we'd love the opportunity to be able to show all of you. If you are interested to have a more detailed demo at some point, please just contact us and we would be happy to set something up. You can go on to the next slide. So, when to buy, why people buy a new ERP. Either this is their first ERP and they're currently just using QuickBooks or another financial tool to run their business, and they're really needing more management, right? They need maybe some inventory management or just better control. Often it's the visibility they're looking for, just getting more deeper visibility, of their products and when they're available, when they can ship. Being able to answer questions for customers more effectively, deeper functionality within a solution, and just more agile. I know we have several customers who were on legacy solutions and just hard to use, hard to maintain, hard to adopt for new users. So just looking for a system that's a lot easier, intuitive, and more flexible for them. You can go forward. We just had a company that was a startup, and his goal was to hire as minimal of employees as he could and just use automation to help run the company. He was successful because he was able to use NetSuite extensively throughout the operations and really limit the amount of employees. Employees are expensive, they're hard to retain these days, and train. So that was his goal, is just to really introduce that automation versus extend out their employee count, just to stay competitive, right? To be able to have a mobile piece and be able to see be able to have more control anywhere you're at, meet the customer's demand, ability to grow your company and scale. Sometimes solutions aren't able to scale effectively. Like I said, drive efficiency, gain more visibility, and just better, I think, as Ben showed, just measure the whole supply chain and manage it. Many reasons why companies look for an ERP, either for their first ERP or as a replacement ERP. And go forward. Pricing. So everybody, here's the rumors of NetSuite's expensive. Any software is expensive. You really do, once you make that investment, you really do need to continuously try to get the most ROI out of it. But NetSuite has done a really good job of packaging the solution for the size of company you are, whether you're a startup, you're a mid-market, or you're a larger company. They really try to scale the solution and the packaging for you. So you can start as minimally as $1,000 a month. I think that number is actually even lower now and has gotten more aggressive. And there's starter packages, mid-market packages for someone that is under 30 users and doesn't see that number growing very much in the next 2 to 3 years. They would start with a mid-market package, or then the other customer being greater than 30. Amazing financing through Oracle NetSuite, through the term of the contract, zero financing. So very nice for you to take advantage of and be able to, finance that both on the licensing side and on the services side. So lots of ways that they try to help companies in getting into that first package. So, please, if there is any interest there or you'd like to find out more, we'd be happy to answer those questions for you. You can go to the next slide. Is there any questions? Brooke, I don't know if Brooke, you're going to be taking it over and seeing if there's any questions?
Yes, I apologize. I was not able to unmute myself fast enough. I am opening it up for questions here. I did see that we had someone raise their hand earlier, so I just wanted to make sure we addressed any questions that anybody had. You're able to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions. We do have we are out of time here, so we will be sending a follow-up email with a recording of this webinar and following up to see if you guys have any questions that you guys would like answered or a tailored demonstration of NetSuite to your specific company's environment. With that, if there are no other questions, we will close out this webinar and hope that you guys will join us for another one. Alrighty. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Oh, actually, I apologize. We have one question here. The question comes from Christine, and this is to Ben. Do the PO mod offer the ability to have them approved by a manager?
Yes, absolutely. So NetSuite is very flexible with functional tools that some of your functional resources could even set up in the form of workflows. There's actually a couple pre-built, pre-configured workflows for purchase order approvals. But a lot of organizations may have their own specific requirements around specific types of purchases and specific requesters who are making the purchasing requests for approvals. But yes, absolutely. There is full workflow capabilities that allow for the creation of purchase order approvals, requisition approvals, sales order approvals, really any transaction type approval. So it's supported in NetSuite. It can trigger emails for you in addition to triggering little reminders on people's portlets.
And Ben, Christine has a follow-up question to that. Does this work with different currencies?
We can absolutely use any sort of approval based on a currency. That you can use any criteria you need as the condition for a approval. Great.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you for the questions from the audience here. We appreciate everyone's time. Oh, one more question. Currencies in general. Does NetSuite work with different currencies in general, not just on purchasing?
Oh, yes. Yes, NetSuite, it has, you can purchase what's called One World in NetSuite, and that allows for the creation of multiple subsidiaries. And you can set some subsidiaries up in different countries, and it has the full kind of locale, whether it's just currency or also languages. But yes, multiple currencies are fully supported in NetSuite, and there's a link with HSBC or a couple other providers that will integrate those live currency translation rates each day.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ben. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you attending our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Have a great day.